Thank you so much. Good morning. It's wonderful, such an honor to be with you and to hear about the ambition and the enthusiasm and the caution that's expressed around artificial intelligence in this country. Congratulations on bringing everybody together for this important event. I guess in some senses, I want to set the scene a little bit today. I'll be talking predominantly about generative AI, and I'll be focusing on something slightly different to what we've been hearing so far. It's incredible to hear about the work going on in health, and there'll be similar stories, of course, in energy and agriculture and manufacturing. And those are vitally important for any country, particularly this one. I've traveled around the world, I've spoken with many governments, and they would do anything to have a message like this from the top officer in their country. They would love it, and you have it. You have the top down and the bottom up here, and the ambition to do something with it. So I know that I'm in the right place. We're talking about AI of the future, AI of tomorrow, but of course, as the Deputy President said, it's very much here. We can all admire what they do in the United States, and the stats are right in front of us here. Half of the companies in the US have adopted large language models, are using generative AI, with a further 30% planning to use it in the near future. So we're talking about 80% of US companies harnessing the power of AI now or in the immediate future. So we know the opportunity is here. So how do we harness it here in Turkey? And I think the key, and I've said this around the world, is that when we think about artificial intelligence implementations, the overwhelming majority of those are going to be the use of generative AI in everyday companies. And when we think about the economy here in Turkey, 3.2 million small to medium enterprises, and I think the key word there is that is the backbone of industry in this country, contributing 99.8% of the companies, 64.5% of the contribution to business turnover, and 73.8% of jobs. That's what we're describing when we talk about industry and the economy here in Turkey. And I'll say it again just to reinforce that. Remember this very, very clearly. The majority of AI implementations and deployments, both here and around the world, are simply going to be companies starting to use generative AI. We're talking about Gemini. We're talking about OpenAI, Claude, Perplexity, the list goes on. And these are phenomenal products. Remember, we're talking about a product that either is free or something like $20 a month that's had $11 billion invested into it when we talk about ChatGPT. A further $100 billion are likely to go into it from Microsoft. What a tool. What an opportunity for everyday businesses and, of course, for our students. And I don't need to tell this audience here, I'm sure, about the power of these technologies, but the three things I pull out are automation, personalization, and productivity. Accenture, McKinsey, others, they talk about 30% increase in productivity from companies that adopt the use of tools like ChatGPT. And that's where this number, I think, will come from. The ambition, as I read it in Turkey, is to be a top 20 country for artificial intelligence, for AI to contribute 5% of the GDP. And that's where it's going to come from. That productivity, I believe, is where you're going to get this $45 billion increase in GPT from. So, what are my recommendations to do that? Well, we talk a lot about upskilling, and I think that's vital, and we'll see that both from the graduates to the last point on my slide, and we'll see it as opportunities for people who want to retrain and to reskill and upskill into new careers as AI changes the face of industries. But I want to draw your attention to my middle bullet points, because I think encouragement and empowerment would be my two key messages when it comes to that 3.2 million small businesses. They don't necessarily need to upskill. The clue's in the name, ChatGPT. You just got to chat with it. But they do need to have a path that takes them there. They need to know what they're dealing with, what the risks are, what the opportunities are, how to get started. Simple things, really, uplifting an entire nation, I think, in one of the easiest ways possible. I'm not just here, though, to champion AI. I'm here to present a considered view as well. My organization, MKAI, it stands for Morality and Knowledge in Artificial Intelligence. And you'll note that we put the morality right at the beginning of that. So some of those considerations. Let's be very, very clear here what we're talking about. We're talking about large language models and generative AI that was not developed here. It wasn't developed in the UK either. The majority of those, of course, are US platforms, and they've been built on this data. So we need to get real about that. The internet is primarily consisting of English language websites. Most of the traffic goes to American companies. It would concern me, living here, to think about the flow of data between my country, my organization, my personal life, and some of these platforms. I absolutely believe we should use them, but I believe we should always do these things with our eyes open. So there's a lot of different considerations around risks in artificial intelligence, but I draw our attention to 3 areas of it today. Fundamental risks, things right here, right now that we need to be very, very aware of. Operational risks, and then theoretical risks. I spend my time exclusively on the first 2. So let's have a look at number 1, fundamental risks. And I'm relating this primarily to what I've been talking about in terms of the SMEs and generative AI. And to make the language barrier a little bit easier, I've put this in words on the slides as well. So let's be very clear here. If we have large language models developed by companies that are outside of the EU and outside of Turkey, that have built these models on websites that don't represent Turkish customs and culture and so on, then we've got a recipe for something not quite right. And it's not just inappropriate, but it's risky. And we have a sort of a risk to sovereignty, I think, from using tools like this. We have almost a sort of colonization of AI in a different way to what we've seen in the past, and hopefully hugely more positive than what we've seen in the past, but it's still there. It's still a homogenization that may or may not represent the people and the businesses using these applications. And just simply, is it relevant? Is it as useful as we hope it's going to be when it's applied into local businesses and cultures? So some considerations to overcome those. But what are the opportunities to train models here? I know that we're graced in the presence of some fantastic technology companies today, and we can only admire what they do and what they bring into the world. But what can we do here? What can we train here? And what are the opportunities, of course, around open source and creating your own models that can be used, that can be far more representative? I haven't got enough time today to go through all the sorts of ideas around regulation, legislation, but absolutely there needs to be a clear view on what matters. What is governance? What matters in terms of privacy? What sort of regulation is needed here to protect the companies and organizations that want to use these tools? Number 2, operational risks. One of my favorite topics, the future of jobs, the future of the workforce. There is this idea that I don't necessarily agree with, that we're going to see an increase in the number of jobs. I don't believe that's true. I think we're going to see an increasing number of technical roles. The opportunity for people who want to skill up is immense, but as we know, not everybody can or will be able to cross that chasm. That's a big risk. And also, I think that the number of those technical jobs is going to outnumber the number of jobs that we have now. And if you don't believe me or you're not sure, then go to ChatGPT and ask, what are the jobs at risk from AI? And have a look at that list. Then say, what are the jobs to be created by AI and look at that list. And then compare the two and look at the disparity. And one of the clear things that you will notice is that the jobs before and the jobs after are not the same in terms of the education and the degrees and technical background that are needed to do those two types of jobs. And that creates this gulf. And so not only do we have outdated skills, Not only do we have a risk of a dissolving middle class and a widening inequality, but also just think about that gap as well. And if AI is able to replace some jobs, it's likely to replace the easier jobs, the more fundamental and lower jobs that you might see in human resources or legal or accountancy. Okay, that's fine. But now we have graduates coming out of universities, and those jobs are no longer there. So how do they make that leap when the baseline jobs have gone? This is a great consideration there for our educational institutions. So considerations, I've touched on these already. AI helps with productivity. It helps companies do more with less. Hold that in your mind. If it's more with less, the less is talking about people. But I don't see that as a downside. I think actually where AI might not create jobs, it creates opportunities. So if I was running a country, if I was running a company, I would be looking at how do we create more companies rather than how do we create more jobs. I can't see existing companies needing more people, but I can see a massive opportunity for more companies. But I want to finish on some positive notes. I think there's so much opportunity here in Turkey. We've heard about the collaboration, the partnerships, the presidential recognition of AI and its national significance, the frameworks, the 21 to 2025 AI strategy. I see a focus on education, R&D, and I see data infrastructure that can support the ambitions. So I think it's an incredible opportunity. Please, please harness AI. Have those considerations. If you want to talk to me, if you want a copy of anything, my details are all there if you want to get in touch. And if you'd like to see how we have these conversations every single day, we have a WhatsApp group, about 500 people in there, and we're wrestling with these issues every single day. Do come and join us. Do come and join the conversation. I thank you for inviting me here and for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.